Hello, everyone. That was my mic is very sensitive today. Um, Clipping, that's fun. Welcome. It's Tuesday. It's time for another. Hello, Lisa. It's time for another casual coding. This is a very special one because I have a very special guest. We moved it back an hour to give them time to get home from school. They are in high school and they are doing some pretty great things with web development and, of course, CockroachDB. So let me bring them on. Let me make sure I get them unmuted and everything. I don't have guests a lot, so I don't get a chance to use this setup. So it's always like, I hope I did all the things. So here we go. I want to welcome Harsh. Is that how you? You know what? I've never asked you. Harsh. Okay, great.
That's fine.
Yeah. So Harsh, you recently posted a blog post to dev.to about an application that you were building using CockroachDB along with, I think, Next.js, and you were using Prisma. Is that correct?
Next.js Prisma, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's great to have you on, and I want to give you some time to introduce yourself. Just, don't dox yourself. Let's not give any location information.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Harsh. I'm a high school student, 15 years old, and I'm a serverless fanboy. I love everything about serverless, from like serverless computing, the idea of serverless computing, serverless like applications, Next.js, and I also do like a bunch of web design. I love the whole web development ecosystem, and I love trying new things out.
Yeah, you're so lucky. Like, I loved web design when I was your age, but like all we had was like HTML 3.2.
Yeah.
A lot of
Now there's
tables.
like Figma and Adobe XD
Oh
and
my
like
God.
a bunch of other tools for like animations and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't have any of that. Like at most, I had a friend who would like animate a GIF for me, and it was basically like an emoji that just spun around. But we didn't call them emojis back then. So this is really great. Yeah, and yeah, high school. Wow. It's just the things that you can do these days. Uh, let's see. Oh, before we start, something I like to do on my show is kind of talk about things that happened in the last week. And something really big happened for us last weekend. We went to our first in-person hackathon. So Lisa, SW Dev Angel, who is on the stream right now, and I went down to the University of South Florida in Tampa, and we participated in Hackable. So there were about 149 participants on site. There ended up being about 26 projects. 11 of them, those used CockroachDB. And to the winner of the best use of CockroachDB, I'm working on it right now, but they won iPad minis. So we were giving out iPad minis. Yeah, it was very awesome. We had a lot of signups, a lot of good conversations, a lot of people using Python, which is kind of the norm. I don't know if you played around much with Python and like the web dev with Python, but you can stick with JavaScript and TypeScript. Like, that's just fine. We got a lot of great things, going. Next.js, which is what I've been using for a long time, starting to get into Remix.
And so that's on my list.
Yeah. So Remix released Remix stacks, and you can create custom stacks. So I'm very excited about diving into that and building a custom stack that involves CockroachDB as the database, because you can kind of set up a template for people to use the CLI to start building a new thing, and you can say, use this stack, and it will pull in the things that you need for CockroachDB, which will be cool. And I'm hoping to get that done before Remix Conf, which is happening in May. So that is going to be out at Salt Lake City, and so CockroachDB will be sponsoring that as well, and we'll be having a fun activity on the first night during the welcome reception. So looking forward to that. Let's see, what else did we do anything else? I don't know. Sure. But today you are going to show us something, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on with that?
Yep, so today I'll be showing you guys how to migrate your Postgres SQL application onto CockroachDB serverless,
Mhm.
like a live application, migrating it onto Postgres SQL. And the best part about like all of this is that it's going to happen with zero downtime, so your application won't face any downtime in case you're actually looking forward to applying this to your own
Oh,
applications.
yeah, that's great because we're real into like no server
No
no
downtime, yep.
downtime because of like you can change the schema in CockroachDB without
Yep, live
messing
schema
with anything.
changes. Uh,
One thing that I haven't asked you is like how did you come across CockroachDB?
I'll be honest. So, like the name CockroachDB, it's like such a memorable name.
Okay.
So, I think I participated in Hacktoberfest 2021,
Okay.
where I got some CockroachDB sticker in the mail, and then recently I heard about as soon as Prisma got their
Hmm.
integration done with CockroachDB. That's like Prisma's my daily driver. I like love Prisma.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah. We're
I
big
can't
fans over
imagine
here as
without it.
well.
I can't like imagine life without Prisma. And as soon as Prisma introduced, I'd been reading about Cockroach for like a while before that too.
Hmm.
But after Prisma introduced support for CockroachDB, on the first day I like got into playing with CockroachDB and like experimenting around with it, learning more about it. And yeah, it's just I've been learning about it since.
Yeah, nice. And what's great is with the release of Prisma 3.11, I believe that's what added the support for migration.
The support for migration, yep.
Yeah, to our
Before you
preview.
had to write out SQL and then do DB pull, which is a little bit less practical as
Yeah.
compared to.
And I actually have to go through and like update all of my examples that I've written with Prisma because like I have examples that started with just using the Postgres integration, and then I have examples that use the preview but like before 3.11, and so like both are kind of doing similar things, and now I need to make it to where you can actually use the migration to kick off the project. So, but like we
Yeah,
found
yeah.
out people were using it because they were telling me so during the hackathon. So it was great to see all the projects that were using Prisma because you could basically guess which sample app of mine they were looking at based on like how they implemented it. So. All right. Well, let me give you your screen, and we can start walking through this. You can kind of give us an overview of what the app is and what it does, and I'll just let you take it from there. So let's go this button. And if you are having trouble out there seeing anything, just let us know. We can increase the size of fonts. We can do whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hello. So I've given a bit of an introduction, but I just made slides anyways in case. So my name is Singh. You guys already know about me. I introduced myself earlier. Here are just some of my socials. And yeah, serverless fanboy. I love databases. I'm a high school student, 15 years old. So first of all, I want to start with like some essential questions before actually moving on to like migrating our app. So my first question is like, what's a serverless database? So I would say you should think of serverless database as like a mixture between traditional like relational databases and like MySQL and PostgreSQL, with like mixed in with serverless computing. So you get the perks of like both relational databases and serverless computing. And now when I say like serverless computing, I'm like referring to a like set of principles, which is like not having to worry about the management of your database, like elastic app scale and automated app scale, with consumption-based billing, like scalable geographically, survive like backend failures, and other stuff. So let's move on to the next slide, which is what's the problem with like relational databases? Why do we need serverless databases? So I believe that relational databases are amazing, but they have some like big problems in them, and perhaps the biggest one is scalability. So they're not designed by like default to be scalable, and like the vertical scaling model isn't exactly a solution for everyone, and it like oftentimes leads to like more complex workarounds, duct tape solutions in like the long term, which isn't good for your database. along with this, I think if you're working at a larger scale, you also need to hire like DBAs to like manage your database in case like things go downhill. So it's like money dripping out everywhere. So let's move on to the third question, which is why go serverless? And I think I've already answered this before. We should go serverless because we can take advantages of both serverless computing, which oftentimes solve a lot of the problems that we face with these relational databases. So enough of boring you guys out with all of this. Let's take a look at our application and what we'll be building.
Yeah.
So the application, this is the application. It's kind of inspired. It's inspired by Levelop's guest book. I'll show you guys what it is. It's basically a really simple, like a clone of this, and it has several features. So it has like login, log out with next auth. It also has like it uses Prisma to handle like manage all the ORM stuff, but you can basically create posts, and yeah, that's like pretty much it. But I like this example because it features like user authentication and stuff. So currently this is using Heroku's Postgres SQL service, and it's deployed on Vercel. So we can just take a look at all the data here in the Prisma Cloud, Prisma data browser. So yeah, let's go into the code base here really quickly, and let's just take a quick tour.
So do you kind of have a high level of like the steps you're going to perform? Like, so we've taken a look at the of the application, and so like what's the kind of the order that we're going to go here? Like, what's the first step? What's the second step, etc.?
So the first step is actually dumping all the data over from Postgres SQL into like our database, like this Heroku Postgres SQL into a dump file.
Okay.
And then importing the dump file into like our CockroachDB database, configuring our CockroachDB database, and then moving on from there.
Okay, great.
All right, so yeah, let's just take a quick tour of the app. I think I should start with my Prisma schema first of all. So right now it's using Postgres SQL. Here are the relations. So it's using next auth, and these are the account, session, user, and verification tokens. They're the default models needed for like next auth if you're using the Prisma provider. We can take a quick look at next auth. So we're using a GitHub authentication, and I have my client ID and secret both stored in my environment file.
Good place to put them.
Yeah. And it's using the Prisma adapter, as I mentioned earlier, which is what these schemas are for. Some API routes here. This basically fetches all the posts, sorts them by when they're created, includes the user, and then it just maps them back into JSON. This is to create a new post, takes the rec.body's content, and checks if there's a session, try-catch, and creates an Prisma post.
So what we're looking at right now are the different API routes that you created to interact with the database. Okay.
Yep. And yeah, I think that's a decent enough tour of the project. It's using Tailwind CSS, which is a
nice,
quick strap together styling. So let's move on to actually like migrating our database.
Okay.
So for this, here's the Heroku database. So there's a feature in Postgres SQL called pgdump, and basically what that does is it like dumps all the data over onto a single file.
Okay.
So if you do, I've already done this like before, and I use ZSH shell, which like auto completes it for me. But yeah, this is what pgdump does. So I believe if you whatever host you're using, if you're using like say Amazon, what's it called? RDBS, if I'm not wrong. Right.
Oh, we have a question. Someone says, I heard you mention vertical scaling. What is the difference between vertical and horizontal scaling?
So vertical scaling is basically like you have a single like server, and vertical scaling would be upgrading that server further. So like upgrading the CPU, storage, RAM, etc., etc. And
Which sounds
horizontal
very
scaling would
expensive.
be yeah, which is very expensive in the long term, and it's not an option for like for me. I can't really vertically scale too much.
Right.
So, and then horizontal scaling on the other hand, it's more like instead of upgrading one single like power AU, it's more like upgrading like getting more machines and then partitioning the data nodes across those different machines.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, like we
I
had
hope
a
that
we had a
answers your
story.
question.
Yeah, we had a story of one of our users came to us at KubeCon, and they were talking about how they set up CockroachDB by dumpster diving for old computers, and so they just set up a whole bunch of these old computers like as different nodes, and they said it'd been running for like 5 years without having to touch it, but like think about scaling for cheap. I mean, they found those machines for free, and they were just like able to add them horizontally. So yeah,
Yeah.
and there's also a limit to how much you can upgrade something vertically.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why with horizontal scale, like especially with like CockroachDB and other serverless databases, true serverless databases almost have like an infinite scale, which is like yeah, pretty important.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. A good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me that. I kind of like skipped over it in my explanation. All right, so where were we? Yeah, so we were looking at pgdump. So pgdump is basically a function integrated into Postgres SQL,
Okay.
which you can use to dump all your like schema and stuff into a single SQL file.
So this isn't dumping it to like CSV. This is actually outputting the schema. So
outputting it locally. Yep.
yeah. So how all the tables look, and then also the data within the tables.
It's kind of similar to like say it's kind of similar to like how Prisma Migrate works in a way. I don't know. It kind of helps CockroachDB generate like the tables similar to how Prisma Migrate would.
Cool.
Yeah. So here, So like whatever, if you're using like Amazon or RDBS or like whatever other Postgres provider you're using, you just need to input like your different host, database, and password, user, port, etc. into this pgdump function. So here pgdump.
And I just want to say all of these passwords will be changed after this. So we're not taking the time to hide them because we know we're just going to reset them.
Yeah. They'll probably reset that over. So yeah, you'll find all different information in whichever like Postgres database provider you're using. So host, database, user, port, password, URI, Heroku CLI, and you can import them into the different like fields specified in this. So if we just and then at the end, it's the file which it's going to output all of this to. So in our case, it's going to output it all into the db.sql file.
Okay.
So if you run this command, and we need to get our password really quickly from here, I'll just copy paste this in. Wait for it to do its magic. And
Wasn't too bad.
It's generated a db.sql file here. I'll lower my terminal down a bit. This is a large file, so I'll just space out a bit so like I can see it myself too. So
hey, Jumpy Craft, what's how's it going? We have double audio. Oh, you might be hearing it come through my mic. I'll put my headphones on. But thanks for that. I'll let you go ahead and go, and I'll fix this.
Can I continue or?
Yeah, go ahead and continue.
So yeah, this is like the file that we've just generated right now with pgdump. It basically has all of our like stuff which we initially defined in the schema.prisma, and it's just dumped it onto this file. So now let's talk about actually importing all of this into CockroachDB. So I believe there's two different ways to do this. So there's this import pg dump, which is, I believe it's part of Cockroach SQL. So you'd have to go into their SQL and do this, and you can import a database. You can import it. This mainly works for like online dumps and online backups, as opposed to like local backups. In our case, we have a local backup, so we won't be doing this, but it's just an example if you want it. I also believe this like requires you to have billing information and stuff set up in your in your CockroachDB account, or else I don't think it'll work. But yeah.
Okay. And just
So
Rain popped in and said horizontal scaling refers to adding more machines to your pool of resources, while vertical scaling adds power to the existing infrastructure. So thank you for the clarification, Rain. And I hope the audio has cleared up. I had everything coming out through my monitor, and so it was probably being picked up by my mic as well. So
yeah, no, not a problem. But yeah, I think I explained the horizontal vertical scaling too, and so yeah, moving on. Yeah, so what we'll actually do is something different. So it's Cockroach, and then there's an import function here.
okay.
So Cockroach import db pgdump. So we can specify what we wanted to import. I don't know why there's a weird space in the middle there, but so we can use Cockroach import, which imports from local files as opposed to like say like online files, online backups. And here's the pgdump function. Since this is a Postgres file, we'll have to use pgdump. And database.sql, that's just that's this file which we just dumped over from Heroku. And next is the URL of our Cockroach database, which we have not created yet. So I'll go over and do this really quickly. So here's just my clusters. I'll hit create cluster. Serverless, dedicated, cloud provider, Amazon, spending limit 0. I'll just rename this to like migrating test.
I think you need to have a dash. Can't do spaces.
Yeah, let's have a dash. And we can do create your free cluster.
I mean, that was pretty fast, but I think that was the longest I've ever seen it take.
Yeah. So we already have. I've already used CockroachDB a bunch before, so I have like some stuff preset up here with like my user and stuff. But it shouldn't be too hard to like configure users and stuff if you just read through the CockroachDB documentation.
Yeah, configuring more SQL users, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't. If you haven't downloaded the CockroachDB client, then they provide a link here too, for like different operating systems. So what I'll do is I'll copy this really quickly, and in here I'll change.
Biting Bits, thank you for the follow.
I'll replace this with our URL that we just copied.
Excellent.
Whoops.
Oh yeah, got a little double pasty in there, didn't we?
I believe this should work. So, oh, I forgot I. Whoops. I think it should work now. So let's pray.
Okay. It's okay, we're doing it live. No one expects things to happen right the first time. Otherwise, it'd be boring.
Yeah. So login for import. Ignoring.
What do we got?
Parser, Aydrian. Oh, right.
Oh, this says.
So I remember. No, this happened when I was initially like migrating my database.
Okay.
So yeah, what is it? Grant all on language. So basically, yeah, this kind of got passed in as a comment. Well, we just need to delete this because if you see this here, if we go back to our Heroku,
Uh-huh.
It's the exact same as our user, and the CockroachDB doesn't recognize this, so they'll have an error trying to
Okay.
parse it. So we can just delete this from our Postgres dump file.
So that was
And
some configuration Python, or sorry, some kind of Postgres configuration setting for language that we just don't need in Cockroach.
yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
So let's pray now. Oh, all right. So
Oh, that was quick.
successfully imported. Yep, that was really quick. Um, so successfully imported pg dump file db.sql. Let's clear really quickly, and let's go here. So for our connection string, we can. Where's this? Yeah. So we can just copy this really quickly.
Okay.
Now let's go into our environment file. I'll be resetting this, so don't try it. It's so I can just copy paste this in.
So we've created a new database that's hopefully identical to the Postgres one that we had, and now we're just updating the database URL, which is what Prisma uses for the client.
And yeah, and we'll also be like changing some schema configuration here.
Okay.
So yep, let's just change the provider from MySQL to CockroachDB, and CockroachDB is currently in preview, so we'll have to add in preview feature, CockroachDB, and it should solve all errors that we're having. Yep. So since the tables are already like generated from this file into CockroachDB, actually we don't even need to run Prisma migrate. So that kind of solves it for us. Now, if we do yarn dev, which starts the local development server on port 3000, yep. So we can see this is currently using CockroachDB, as we can see in our Prisma file.
Okay.
And everything, all of our data has been migrated from Cockroach over on. I'm from Heroku Postgres onto Cockroach. So we can try logging in with GitHub really quickly.
And because we didn't change any of the schema, we didn't have to regenerate our client or run any kind of migrate on Prisma. Just changing the database URL was all that we needed to do.
And yeah, and like some minor tweaks with like preview features. So currently I get like a callback error, but this is only because the way like GitHub OAuth apps work, you need like a specific callback URL, and my callback URL is set to production, and so you can see it it redirected me from like my localhost website onto the actual website. So I'll go back into localhost. I kind of forgot that I can't like log in.
Yeah, that's just OAuth problems that we all have to deal with.
Yeah, that's OAuth problems. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we can see, it's migrated onto the development environment. Now what we'll do is we'll head over to Vercel, where this is deployed. If you're doing this on like something else, like Netlify, for instance, I believe the process should be similar.
Okay.
I've never really experimented much with Netlify, but I think it still follows like the basic fundamentals that Vercel does.
Right.
So here we have our database URL, and we can edit this. So let's edit it from what it is right now onto our Cockroach, and we can just hit save. Now it won't as long as we don't like redeploy our application, the environment variables won't update.
Okay.
But currently our like live application doesn't have like this change. It doesn't have like the schema change, so it can't really process that.
Okay.
Well, yep.
But it also doesn't like use those environment variables until a deploy happens, right?
Yeah, it doesn't use it until we do it. So we can so this is currently set up in it's like into the Vercel thing. It's like integrated into my GitHub repository for this. It's private right now, but it will be public later in case you guys just want to.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I've also like left instructions for like cloning and quick starting the project, which will be handy.
Yeah.
So yep, so we can just simply commit our changes. change provider from PostgreSQL to CockroachDB. Yes, sync changes. I just recently, I think we'll have to use like git kraken or something, because I just recently like changed my setup, and I think some stuff might be messed up. So we're on the guest book, and I've pushed a master.
Okay. And that's going to kick
we
off our deploy on
this
Vercel.
page, it's going to kick off our deployment on Vercel.
Awesome.
And if we head over to deployments, you can see it's building. I'll just open this up. Pray there's no error.
It's the new compiler.
It worked when I was trying this out. Let's hope it doesn't screw up on stream.
Yeah, oh no, it's fine. We'll fix it. Yeah, so I noticed that like in the schema, like the IDs, they're using CUIDs, which is great, and it's being defaulted to the function that Prisma provides to generate one of those. So that's also great. I don't really know. I know I use a lot of UUIDs, but I guess I'm not really sure what the difference between a CUID and a UUID is. I do know. I think they're close enough to the same. What we like to do is for the IDs, instead of using something like an auto incrementing int, we like to use these UUIDs or CUIDs, and we like them to be non-sequential because this is now distributed SQL. And so whenever new things are being added, we want to make sure that they are written across multiple nodes instead of all being sent to one node, and then the system has to work to level all those back out.
Yep, so our application, thankfully, it's been deployed.
All right.
So let's visit our application, and so we have all the stuff generating from CockroachDB. This application URL is weird, so let's just open up guestbook.harsh.in. Okay. Which is like on my personal subdomain, and let's just hard reload this to make sure it still works. Good. And let's try to see if like posting works. So I'll just do something.
Will the
random.
insert happen?
Headphones hurt my ears. Will this happen?
Yeah, tell me about it. Oh,
all right, works. So we get a thanks for signing the guest book, and using SWR, which is something provided, which is like a bunch of data fetching tools by Vercel. It mutates like the state live onto the screen. Okay. And I believe it works. So the last step of this would be to like fixing up our Prisma data browser, so Prisma Cloud.
Yeah, so I need to use this more often. I don't use the data browser very often.
Yeah. So the database connection string, we'll update the connection string, which we have in our database URL here. Import this in really quickly. Update database connection isn't supported. SSL mode as data. All right, so do we have SSL mode verify full? I think we can remove this, and I hope it works. Let's pray.
If I remember right, like some of those settings that we pass over get ignored, like on the client, but they're working on supporting some of those, but still works. Is it using the option for setting the cluster? Or I guess you've done this before, right?
I have not. The one part I skipped was updating the Prisma Cloud, but I don't know. I think this might be like the Prisma's Cloud might not have integrated it in yet. Yeah. Because CockroachDB is like it's still in preview. Database URLs are definitely like more different than like the normal Postgres URLs.
Yeah. So I think they actually made some changes whenever they were implementing us to allow for like sending in the options. So that's how we send the cloud. So what you could do is if you go back to your CockroachDB Cloud Console, and then hit connection parameters, and then copy the database from there. So you see how it's got that migrating test.db. So copy the database from there, and then update.
Maybe that might work.
And then you can take off that options, because like what we're doing is we're kind of making it in such a way that like that's kind of more like a regular Postgres one.
Database connection updated.
Yeah. So sometimes it doesn't like passing the cluster name and options, but we also support passing the cluster that way.
The source is missing. I think source is missing a validator type. I think this might be.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to them.
I think this might be like the thing that we discussed earlier with like Cockroach being in preview.
Yeah.
But hopefully this will definitely. I'm definitely hoping that it does work later on. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to show you guys. Our
great.
application had absolutely zero downtime throughout this entire process, and we were able to change our database from normal Heroku SQL into CockroachDB serverless, and our application should be good to go now. And as we can see, everything works.
Yeah.
We can let's try.
So the only problem would be like if you were getting post during that deploy, right? Because before that deploy, it's still going to the old database, and so from the time you did the PG dump to the time that you did the deploy with the updated, if there's anything there, like you would probably have to check, right, and migrate those last records. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick process, and I definitely encourage you to migrate your Heroku. I used to use Heroku Postgres. It was a nightmare, to say the least.
I used that because it was free. There wasn't a lot of free databases whenever I was playing with. But luckily, CockroachDB serverless is free.
It's free too, and it's definitely much more generous than 20 connections.
Oh yeah, that doesn't scale. Next on does it scale? This one doesn't.
Yeah.
Nice. So do you want to? Can we take a look at some of your Prisma code? Like, I know we kind of glanced at it, but do you want to show us like what it's doing whenever you receive the update call? So your UI is calling one of these API routes, and API routes are kind of a standard part of Next.js. And so you created special routes to do looks like a new, so the new post. So that's actually doing an insert, right? Okay. You want to talk through kind of
the insert,
from the developer's perspective, now that we have the database up and going?
Yep. So I can explain.
Yeah.
So for this is the file where I'm using this is the file which like maps all the different posts onto our like on it's basically using the React .map array.map function, which maps an array of objects into like HTML elements. So what this does is this uses SWR, which is a library by Vercel, and it just contains a bunch of really useful and handy data fetching tools. So use SWR basically. We use our API route, which is API posts, which here basically what we do is we do prisma.post.findMany.
Okay.
So this is our post relation in Prisma, in our schema.prisma. If we run Prisma generate, then it'll automatically generate stuff for us. But if we do prisma.post.findMany, here we just order by when the posts were created. So newest post up top and oldest at the bottom. We can also do like we can do ascending and descending.
Okay.
So ascending would be like newest post at top, and this includes the user. So if we look at the relations in our database here, the post model has a relation to the user model, which is down here.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, the user model basically has like information such as their like name, email, if they're verified, their image, stuff we can get from the GitHub API when we log in our user.
Yeah. So this
Yep.
is
So
Prisma doing that join of the two tables for us. I think that's
mhm,
really cool that we can just not have to write
mhm.
that join.
Yeah, um, definitely really useful. And all I kind of really had to write for this would be a simple type which uses a Prisma validator, which is basically post with user. It basically just takes our post type. So the post type which Prisma generates by default, it won't have the relations that we mentioned in the Prisma file. So you can't do post.user if you just do like find unique.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so we have to create a custom type, which isn't that big of a like deal.
Yeah, I just
But
realized
we
that
can
you did all this in TypeScript. Like,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
way ahead of
yeah.
me. I'm still learning TypeScript.
I kind of started with TypeScript. So, yeah, I, so yeah, this is it's a custom type. You don't need to worry about this if you're using JavaScript, I believe. I'm not sure. I don't,
Yeah, no.
but I don't think you need to worry about this if you're using JavaScript. But if you're using TypeScript, you can just do from Prisma has documentation for this,
Okay.
but you can just do include user is equal to true.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see here, we use the post with user type imported from like the typings in our React function component. And so here, if we go even back more, this is our initial page, and here we do get server side props, which is a method built into Next.js prefetching. And
Mm-hmm.
here, basically, what we do is we do prisma.post.findMany, and we do the exact same thing that we're doing here, except this does prefetching, so it like already fetches it from our database, so the user doesn't have to like stare at a blank screen waiting for like
Right.
the different values to populate. This happens before, as mentioned, server side rendering happens before like the client views it on the screen. And so here it returns the posts as props, and we can see we have in our next page component, we have it as like an array of post with users. Then what we do is we pass this into posts as and under the fallback prop. And if we go into our, which file was it again? Sorry.
Oh,
If
the
we go
post
into our
component. Yeah.
posts, yep, the post
Yeah.
component, we add this fallback into our use SWR, so it has some data to show if it's not fetching. Now, the way that it updates the data here, I have another component, which is the form component,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a create post method here, which basically like creates the posts, and it tags this API route, the new.ts, and where is it? Form. Yeah. So what this basically does is JSON.stringify, DOM purify.sanitize, avoid from like SQL injection and stuff.
Okay.
And yeah. So and this uses the default fetch method in JavaScript to fetch to API new, and request options, which is like headers, method, and body. Then this just sets a hook here, which the hook basically I use for displaying like the things for signing the guestbook method.
Okay.
And yeah, and then what it does is it uses another function of Vercel's SWR,
Uh-huh.
which is mutate. And basically what mutate does is it updates the state of this API route. So mutate API posts. Then yeah, simple try catch. If there is an error, then we can do set error, and then they'll show us an error here. And if it's like if it was successful, it'll set visible to true, and it will have that thank you for signing the guestbook message that we had at the bottom. And along with this, it'll mutate this, so we can update our posts with the recent post that the user just created. So that's how like the Vercel fetching stuff works.
Yeah, that's very cool. Like, you're using features that I haven't even dug into, but
Yeah.
I need to, but also I'm like, remix. Um, yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, thanks for this. This
Remix
was,
is like I gotta try it out sometime. It's like
yeah.
I've heard so much hype around it with like Kenzie Dodds and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
promoting it actively. So
Yeah,
it's on my list.
I've been following Kinsey Dodd since he was doing I forget it every time. It was before Remix, before he went to Remix. It was Angular. Yeah, he was real big into
Angular, I
Angular.
see.
But no, that's
Hmm.
really cool. Um, yeah, so if you were to give a piece of advice to someone just starting out using CockroachDB, do you have anything?
Do I have anything? The thing I struggled most with
Uh-huh.
when I initially started using CockroachDB with Prisma, honestly, I feel like the managed structure, like the fact that you don't have to worry about CockroachDB like at all. It's like it's like I don't have to worry about CockroachDB. That's like the thing because of like
Yeah.
like if you ask me for like a piece of advice on like Postgres SQL or Heroku, oh I have lots of advice for you, but like CockroachDB, it's like it manages everything for you. If you're using Prisma with
Uh-huh.
CockroachDB, I used it the first day it came out, and I had some problem with like I was trying to run Prisma Migrate, and I'm like, oh, Prisma Migrate doesn't
It
support
doesn't
this
work
yet.
yet. Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
it does work now,
Mm-hmm.
so thankfully, and I tried it out, it worked perfectly for me. But it does work now. But initially when I like started using CockroachDB, like I had to write the SQL, like raw SQL. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
and like I suck at writing SQL queries, table joins, and stuff.
We've all
And
been there. I've written stored procedures that's brought a system to its knees. So yeah, I get that. So what would you do if you wanted to add to this? So like maybe you want to add a field to the guest book, or you wanted to add more tables to show things. Like from a database standpoint, we've moved everything
mhm,
over. We have the client that works.
mhm.
Have you tried doing any like
If
mutations
yep.
on the database
So
like that?
if we want to add something,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, if we will want to like add something else, generally if we migrate onto like a Postgres SQL, if we run like the migrations, you will see like a file here
Mm-hmm.
called migrations.
Sure.
And you'll have to delete that first because that those like contain previous like migrations of Postgres SQL.
Okay.
But if we want to like say if we want to add like a new model, I don't know, I'll just do model example ID string. Uh, it's just a text string. So this is just like an example, super quick like Prisma
Okay.
model that I created. If we run now yarn Prisma migrate dev, so what'll happen is so it will reset like
Oh.
it'll like reset the data.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe like the your database schema is not in sync with like your migration history, so
Okay.
that's what happens is like you have the like chance of losing data, but if you do you can I believe if you run like another backup it'll still contain all
Okay.
like your different data.
But you got to
So
kind of get that first one in. Like you need to get that first migrate done, right? So there might be a
mhm,
chance that you lose your data, so you want to have a backup handy to restore that. But
mhm,
then for
mhm,
future migrations, it's probably not going to have to mess with the
mhm.
data.
Yeah,
Okay.
it won't. Because yeah, well, so once you the way this is kind of like how Prisma works. We can't really do anything about it,
Mm-hmm.
but the way Prisma works is like they're like the migration system. It creates it creates like a history of like the different migrations,
Yeah.
and it kind of needs that, which it doesn't have if we migrate directly over. Which if we add like something new, I believe this is like a problem we can run into.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say yeah, keeping a backup of data is definitely handy.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if there's some
this
way that we can say
goes
like
yeah.
grab whatever it is now,
Mm-hmm.
as like you are init. Um, like as our new initial, and so that way the next, like, so it will like know the schema based on like introspection. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, here's just another. It's just a simple seeding file in case I just felt like explaining this. So the seeds are Prisma database here. It just has a bunch of posts, maps them onto prisma.post.create. It uses the connect to join like the two tables together, and yeah, this is the seed file in case anyone was confused about what seed means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is nice for like net new developers, right? Like you're starting up your development database. Like your development database is probably not going to be the production database, so you want to make sure you have something that looks the same, but you also want to start it out with some data because you don't want to start it blank.
And yeah, that's where seeding comes in. And this is basically just me seeding the database with some written stuff.
Nice.
But yeah. Anything else? Or...
I'm trying to think. Yeah, like, so it's going to be different. Like you could be very lucky and be starting your application, net new, and you don't have to worry about all of the stuff, and starting with the Cockroach integration, and you starting with Prisma, like you're going to be golden. But sometimes, you're going to find a lot of times in life that we have to start with something else and move it over. And this was pretty painless. Like I know we've been streaming for about an hour, but if you're just doing this and you're not having to like dictate out loud everything that you're doing, like how long do you think this would take?
I mean, for me, I had to like. So I'll tell you a personal story. I was doing this. I'm like a night owl, so I was doing this 2 a.m. at night, and I was trying to figure this out. Like, so I searched up like PG dump and how it like integrates into Postgres SQL, and I like ran into this documentation, but basically this like requires a payment method and online backups, and this works best with Amazon like relational databases.
Okay.
Which I was using Heroku, so it wasn't like really practical for me, but I did spend a lot of time like messing around with this, which I actually, if someone were to immigrate from like migrate here from like the Amazon relational databases, I'd actually suggest doing this instead, because it's definitely faster, and it has more like built-in support. But I tried to like migrate from like online.gz files, and I did waste like a lot of time in this, but like with like a tutorial, I think I would have took me 5 minutes at max. It's like it's a piece of cake, really.
Nice. Yeah. Well, cool. Do you want to? I don't know if you want to bring up your slide. Share once more where people can find you on the internet. Let me pull up. I'm gonna drop your latest blog post in here again.
Oh yeah, the
Okay, gotta go pull it up. See if I can find it. Well, let's see how well it's been indexed by Google. Search for it. Here we go.
CockroachDB.
So I'm going to drop this in the chat. Once again, this is his blog post on dev.to about building a serverless application with Next.js and CockroachDB. And yeah, unless the audience has any other questions for Harsh, we'll show everybody how to find you online. If you're hiring any kind of internship that takes high schoolers, reach out. But yeah, no, this was.
Yeah, this is where to find me online. I try to do Harsh stuff on like all different social platforms except Instagram, which is a bit personal, but I mean, it's
Oh yeah,
nothing really. I mean, it's public anyways, but
yeah. I try to
if
do
you
I try to
guys,
do like Adrian or it's Adrian.
it's
Like
Adrian. Yeah, I
yeah,
think your Twitter is like it's
yeah.
Adrian.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
somebody had taken Adrian and it made me mad. So yeah,
Your
thank
Twitch is
you,
it's Adrian
Lisa.
too.
Thanks
Yeah, I
for
believe.
coming. Um, but yeah, other than that, I will be at BitCamp. That is happening a week from Friday, so it's a 36-hour hackathon at the University of Maryland. Lisa and I and some other members from the CockroachDB team or Cockroach Labs team will be down there. It's going to be fun. We've made some new grid pads. So they're like little notepads with a grid on it. So you can. I went to an engineering school, and like engineering grid paper was like everything. So we made some CockroachDB. I'm gonna try to get you some swag put together, like some of our hackathon swag, and send it out to you. Um,
Mm-hmm. Great.
but yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, we're doing like an intro to SQL workshop, and again, we're gonna be looking for the team with the best use of CockroachDB, and we have some more iPad minis that we're gonna give out. But I will
Interesting.
be here next week. Back to our original time, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then the week after that, it's going to be interesting because I am moving. The moving truck will be coming the Monday before, so the day before. And so as long as I'm able to get somewhat some of my setup up, then we will stream again. But we'll play that by ear. Harsh, thank you again for the blog post, for coming, and maybe we'll have you back sometime. We'll figure out something
I
else to
hope
do.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, let me go back to our two up here. Thank you all for coming. Again, oh wait, what? Also, if you go to HackRU, which is the hackathon at Rutgers University, be sure to use CockroachDB in your project, because MLH is handling that one for us. That is this weekend, and that's why I will not be there because I just came back from one, and I need a break. I have to pack up my stuff, so I can move. But yeah, if you're going to HackRU, please use CockroachDB. And cool. Well, thank you
Yeah.
again, and I will talk to everyone later. Time for me to go to, time for me to eat and then go to Japanese class. This is my last class for Japanese 1.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a lot.
is Rutgers isn't too far from New York, right? I'm located in
Yeah,
the capital region,
yeah,
so
it's
I think it's a 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive from here.
okay.
Not too far.
Yeah, it's in New Jersey, so
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know. I
I
came
know
from like
my
Indiana, which is
my friend's
huge.
cousin goes there,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up, and thank you all for sticking around, and we will see you next week, or at least I will. Bye.
Mhm.